Hello, here's Eddie. This is a special message to the Labour Party. How would you like to have 3 heads instead of just 2 heads? I have 45 years in the electronics industry. I was a merchant navy for 6 years prior to that. I have experience in all things. I did a business course at Plymouth Technical College, Polytechnic, before it became a university, and I ran my own business, TV and video rentals, only I wasn't one of these greedy sods that charge ridiculous prices. I was very, very fair, probably too fair, because sometimes if I knew it was an old age pensioner, I knew she didn't have much money, I'd do it for nothing, or at least my labour for nothing. And I had some customers that were extremely wealthy, like the executive of Beecham Spills and Beecham Powders. When he sold out to GlaxoSmithKline or whoever it was, he became a millionaire. He had a house 100 yards from my shop, and he used to come in to me, and I used to visit his house to look at stuff. And I said to him, I said, I don't know if you know this, I said, but I charge you extra so that I can do stuff for the poor people of the village for less. And he says, you're still half the price of anybody else I've been to. Why do you think I keep coming back? I said, well, I'm glad you feel that way. Another person living in our area was Edward Woodward, the famous actor, and his wife, Michelle Detrice, who you might remember as Frank Spencer's wife in Some Mothers Do Have 'Em. But I'm afraid she didn't look a bit like that when I saw her. In fact, she nearly ran into me. She was pulling out of her, right in front of me. Now, I'm a very, very careful driver, and I drove all over Devon and Cornwall doing TV and video repairs. I worked for a company in Plymouth called Pierce & Gray, and I went out to houses where nobody had been able to find a fault, and whenever that happened, I got sent out. And I solved them all, and most of them were so stupid it was unbelievable. One was a hum on the TV. 7 engineers had visited there. They brought the set into the workshop, nothing wrong. And I walked in the door, and with 1 minute I said, I can tell you what's wrong with you. And he said, what? I said, that aerial you got coiled up hanging to the back of your TV. He said, but that caused that? I said, yeah. So he took it off and dropped it on the floor, and lo and behold, the buzz had gone. I said, what had happened was, he used to have he had the lead longer than needed so he could move his TV to different rooms. This is a long time ago, remember. No satellite, no nothing in those days. And the reason I solved it and they couldn't was because I learnt basic electronics, and I knew that a coil is an inductor, and an inductor inducts a magnetic field when it's radiated by another magnetic field. And in those days, TVs had a thing called a line output transformer. And anybody who was around in those days with a radio, they'd get a whistle on it, especially on the light program on the long wave. And he said to me, how is it nobody else knew that? I said, because they got a job in the shop and they just picked it up as they went along. And the first week I was in this shop, working another shop, I'd only just finished the course. I did a government training course, and I passed my City and Guilds intermediate on that, and the following year, 1970, I passed the finals. But I was in this shop, the first job I'd ever had after leaving the training college. Oh, by the way, I finished top of the class. And in fact, the lecturer used to use me as an assistant, assistant teacher or whatever, lecturer or whatever you call it. He was called a lecturer. Rather strange, he was Irish. I mean, not that I got anything against the Irish, but I was rather surprised when I got there and found the lecturer was Irish, but he was bloody clever. Well, he was clever enough to realise that I was smarter than the rest of the class anyway. Anyway, that's another story. Oh, cool, I've got to go back to where I was now. Yeah. The first week I was on this job with the firm, after I left there was a chap on the bench next to me, and they had this fault. And everybody in the room went up and talked to him. They were all talking, discussing it. They tried just about everything, and at the end of the week, when I'd repaired about 10, 15 sets, I said to him, do you mind if I suggest something, because I know I've only just started, but because I just started, all I had was the basic technology, and if you go back to basics on anything, you can diagnose faults on anything. But it just so happened, I said to him, have you tried the scan coils? Oh, he laughed. Never had scan coils fail on any television set, because in those days it was tubes and you had scan coils which magnetically scanned well, it was actually a white spot that came back and forth, and then one that did it up and down, and you'd get two faults on a set, one horizontal white line, the other a vertical white line, depending on which one was not working. And I said to him, have you tried the scan coils? And he said that, you know, he gave me that about knowing and everything. I said, well, all you got to do is unsolder them. I said, and if you unsolder the line leads, that's the ones that lead to the line output stage, I said, because there's no scanning in that direction, you'll wind up with a white line vertical. Hadn't got a clue what I was talking about. But he did have the intelligence to disconnect the scan coil, and lo and behold, up pops a white line on the screen, and he said, bloody hell, he said, how did you know that? I said, well, I've only just left college. I didn't get a degree or anything, in anything, any kind of science, but I was top at class in every school I went to. But because my dad was a country yokel, and my mother was in service, a scullery maid to start with, and my dad was a farm worker, and the lowest farm worker of the lot because he couldn't drive a tractor. But at the end, my dad was so clever and knew so much about animals that when the vet came, he didn't bother to look at the animal, just asked Dad what was wrong, then wrote out the prescription. And my mother, scullery maid, wound up the equivalent of a female butler. And you couldn't be a female butler, there's no such thing. But a butler is somebody that runs the complete household and everything. And my mother was called a cook housekeeper, which is the female version. That's all they were allowed to call them. But she did exactly what a butler would do. And a butler, not a valet, a butler. Two different things. And because of that, people like me, when we come and say something, they just don't believe it. We haven't got letters after our name, or we're not this or that the other. But I had a really good laugh last night because I watched two tribes, and the question was, have you got a degree? And there's the less tribe than the no tribe. And you'll never believe what the result was. The yes tribe got thrashed 7-1. by the No tribe. And I knew every one of the answers that the Yes tribe didn't know. So, what's a degree? A piece of paper that you might as well throw on the fire. I'm trying to contact the Labour Party to get me to... They can sign me on as a assistant to the Treasury advisor, free of charge. I charge nothing for anything. I'm subscribed to the Labour Party, so that they should go to somebody. Please get in touch with me, because I can tell you how to solve these stupid problems. For a start, everybody's blaming the wrong person. It's Margaret Thatcher that is blamed today. People like me, who worked and had their own business and put money away for a decent pension. I started a pension in 1980 when the average wage was about £30 a week, and the pension was about £25 a week, and I put away the money that should give me £100 a week, which I thought, I'll be able to live comfortably on that. Oh, God. Margaret Thatcher comes along, 17.5% inflation, and now, thanks to the Labour Party, I'm better off than I was, because the pension of £1,151 a year is my pension. Until Labour got in last time, they used to take that off my ordinary pension. And then Labour came in and they changed it, and thank God it hasn't been changed back, to you could keep 60% of it. Now, you'll never believe this, that nobody mentions this on the television when they're attacking Cameron, but the pension credit to people has been reduced by £2 a year for the last 4 years. I've just had when Labour were in power last, £24 something a week. I've just had a letter to say that in April it's going down to £16 something a week. I'm hoping in June it'll go up again when we've got a different government, because I think they're in for a big shock. We're running into deflation now. Our landlord will be round to collect rent shortly on Monday, and I'm going to ask him if we're going to get a reduction in rent this year, because every year there's inflation. They've put it up by more than the inflation, and now we've got deflation. They should reduce it, shouldn't they? But the biggest con of all that the government's losing money on, or at least the National Health Service is losing money on, are all these firms that are coming round to people like me that doesn't have to pay for things and flogging us rubbish. Now, I've had the outside clinic, Lloyd's outside clinic, come here to test my eyes for the last 2 years. Last 2 years. They're coming again the third year in a couple of weeks. So it's nearly 3 years. Each time I've had 2 pairs of glasses, because they said it's changed. One for driving and one for reading. The ones both of them appear to be the same to me, but for reading I have to hold whatever it is 6 inches from my eyes like that, and I want it for a computer. The driving glasses, I nearly had an accident because your peripheral vision is rubbish. And I'm wearing my driving glasses now to watch the television, because they're perfect at about 7 or 8 feet. I couldn't even read the little 30 mile an hour, 40 mile an hour signs they have on lampposts. With the glasses on, took them off, I can read them. And the laugh of all was that at the end of it, she said, "You know what your trouble is? You're long-sighted." I thought to myself, if I'm long-sighted, does that make me better at driving and I don't need glasses? Surely the further you can see, the better your driving will be. And if they like to check my driving record, they'll have to go back beyond computers to get anything. They'll have to go, I got no claims going back, oh, must be 35 years, or even 40. And the only thing I had was I had an accident when I was 17, and that wasn't my fault, but because of this comprehensive insurance agreeing to knock for a knock, I lost my no claims bonus. Fortunately, it didn't amount to nothing because it was the first year I'd insured. I had a car, I paid 600, it was a 835 van, I paid 365 quid for it, because it wasn't A-registered. They'd switched from the, it was 58 LDV, whereas all the new stuff was A something or other, or something or other A. I don't know if you remember back that. Now they got putting the letters in front again, or the date. And anyway, because of that, I got it a little bit cheaper, 365. The damage that was done by this lorry that cut a corner, and the front, and then swerved away, and the front missed me, but the back wheel hit me, and I was so close to the edge that both sides of my van were damaged, the steering was damaged, and the repair was more than what I'd paid for it. But they didn't write it off and give me a new van. No, some sort of fiddle between the two companies, you see. They avoid paying legal fees if they have to. I think there should be no such insurance on a car other than third party. That would improve everybody's driving, because if you had to pay for it, you wouldn't want to damage your car, would you? And I think the same house insurance causes fires, because they know they're insured, they're less careless. They're more careless, they're not so careful. I'm forced to buy house insurance because I'm on a mobile home park site, as you probably see if you've seen some of my videos. And the other thing is, places like Starbucks, why don't you tax them on turnover? In other words, the money that goes, our money that goes into the till. And Google tax them on the money that comes out of people's bank accounts before it leaves the country. Now, when I was in the Merchant Navy, I was on a trip for 13 months. Because I left in February and got back in March, if I'd have got back in April after the tax year, I'd have got a year's free tax and insurance, etc. But because I left in February and got back in March, all that time I wasn't in the country, I had to pay full national insurance and full tax. I think these people that are filling in expenses should be treated like PAYE. All their income taxed and given they should be given allowance like we were. I used to have to drive 13 miles to work. I had to pay for the petrol, the run into the van, the service and everything. And I didn't get taxed, allowed against tax for it. But I came self-employed, didn't I? A smart sod. I rented a shop. My mother worked in the shop during the morning, serving the customers, and I had 100 quid, which I bought things like batteries, bulbs, all the small items that people buy every day. And people used to come into the shop and say, why are you cheaper than Tesco? Thinking it was a catch. I said, well, I don't know, I only have a 25% markup. I don't know what they do. And that, to me, 25% seemed reasonable. And next to that, the other big trick is, what did I say? Oh yeah, another way you might be able to get round these people is to have, you know, like you've got national insurance for the employee and the employer, why don't you have VAT for the buyer and the seller? Because at the moment, a business gets back all the bloody VAT that they pay, why should they? And also, this stunt that Cameron's going on about boasting, why haven't you tackled him on this about low wages? Taking people out of tax. That is the worst thing you can do. Do you know why? If they're anything like me, if you're not being paid enough to pay tax, you're not being paid enough. And people like that just don't work as hard. I'd be embarrassed to be working and not earning enough to pay tax. I'd be delighted to earn enough to pay tax. I know I'm 77 now, so it doesn't really matter. But because of idiots like them, that's why the country's in a mess. I'm claiming pension credit when I should be on a nice private pension, living comfortably. Luckily, when my father retired, he was in a tight cottage and couldn't buy a new home. And I was earning £13 a week as a milk recorder. Yeah, I'm qualified as a milk recorder as well. And I did the books and all that. I got sacked because I was late one morning to a 6 o'clock milking and I missed the first 2 cows. And you know why? Because I was doing 2 other persons' work as well as my own. I had my area and there was 2 people sick and I was doing both theirs and I was staying up till over midnight to do the books. Because I wound up getting late there one morning. And I bet the sod was a Conservative that phoned them up because it wasn't one of my members. And even then, I took his word on the weight of the milk. And I knew he was telling the truth because I could tell from the previous records that, you know, you get knowledge like that. And I knew quite a few famous people with titles in front of themselves that were farmers in Devon and Cornwall here that were on my books. I don't know if any of them are alive now, they might be. But they're certainly retired. And they asked me to resign because of it. And I told them to get stuffed. I said, you'll have to sack me. I wasn't smart enough to take him, well, I tried to take him to tribunal, but I couldn't get anywhere that time. But the next time I went to a tribunal, I did. They tried to stop my disability benefit. And I took him to a tribunal, and guess what? No matter what party's in, they cannot stop my disability. I get mobility and I get care allowance. The only thing is I should have a higher care allowance because they give me £20 a week and I give double that for a cleaner to help. But I'm not hard up simply because I'm very green in the sense I don't drive when not necessary. Since I left the Merchant Navy, I've only been out of the country once. And that was to Lagos in Nigeria to teach them how to repair video recorders. And this is the very first Philips cassette video recorder that was like a 8-track. It was continuous tape. So when you came to the end, you went back to the beginning again. They only lasted an hour. The place I was working used to sell those tapes for 65 quid. And you'll never believe it, they were recorded off BBC and ITV. And I went out there and that's the only time I've been out of the country since I joined the Merchant Navy because I wanted to travel. And I've been around the world 3 times. I've been to most countries, including Japan. And if you watch any of my 8mm film, believe it or not, it is 60-year-old, some of that film, that well, some of it I've converted to widescreen digital. It started off as a Kodak Brownie 8mm camera, which was the very first home movie camera ever made. And one film used to cost me a week's pay, and it lasted 10 minutes. But I was really interested in it, you see, because prior to that I'd been a boy projectionist in the cinema. And that's where I got the idea for 3D, because I happened to see 3D in that cinema. And I was sacked or laid off because of television. And there was 2 cinemas in the town of Tiverton, and ours was the Flea Pit, the Electric Theatre. The other one was the Tivoli. It was great because I got free tickets to both places. I could go to their cinema and they came to ours. I saw The Robe, the first ever CinemaScope film there at the Tivoli. But us Flea Pit, we had the 3D one, the House of Wax. And that was bought out by the cinema industry to compete against television, because they couldn't get 3D on TV, you see, because in those days it was these green and blue glasses, red and blue glasses. Anyway, I don't know how much longer I'm allowed to carry on here. 26 minutes, must be getting close. And I don't know whether to send this worldwide or send it to the Labour Party. But if Ed and Ed, that is to say Ed Miliband and Ed Balls, wants another Ed that's damn sight clever. If you watch, I tell people how to beat Cameron at math. Multiply 11 by 13. It's easy. 10 times 13 is 130. 1 more 11 is 141. I'd worked it out while he was muttering about it. And I haven't done that for years. I used to work, that's how I worked at school. Teacher writes a problem on the wall, like 2 times 7 times 9, whatever it is, equals, and then everybody had to get the answer, you know, write it down and put the answer down. I really annoyed her, because I'd call out the answer just after she wrote equals. Hey, how did you do that? She even wrote to my mother complaining, a teacher did, that I asked too many questions. That made my mother livid. How the hell do you expect someone to learn if they don't ask questions? See, I had a doctor here for 40 years. He's retired. I used to talk to him, and he talked to me like an intelligent person, and he learned from me and I learned from him. And now he's retired. I've had 3 different doctors, and 2 of them are now ill, complaining that I infected them. In actual fact, they infected me. I had diarrhea for 2 days. One of them still had it 3 weeks later. I had a slight sniffles. 2 days later it was gone. They've been off with the flu, whatever flu it is. I never even had the injections, because it's a waste of time and waste of NHS money. When I was a child, I had all these smallpox vaccines, diphtheria, poliomyelitis and all that, and nothing happened. You know, you're supposed to have a reaction. Well, what that actually meant was that you already had the antibodies, because all these injections and whatnot do is teach your immune system to produce antibodies. And if you go onto my website about medical matters and that, it'll explain everything. There's even a cure for cancer and AIDS on there, and asthma and allergies. They're all basically part of the same thing. And I've been lucky at the moment now, because I've joined Age Concern, and they put me in touch with Silverline, which is Esther Ranson's, for children and whatnot. And I told them how I was abused as a boy, and probably every other boy in the country. Just don't admit it anymore. It was a vicar. I was cross-bearer at the church, and they said it was part of confirmation. And in those days, we didn't have a clue at the age of 12. And I didn't want to say anything, because I thought it was nice. It's bloody ridiculous, isn't it? I didn't understand what had happened until I joined the Merchant Navy, and part of the Merchant Navy training was sex, because you had to know about it if you went in the Merchant Navy. And if you're interested, there's loads of films of different places in the world I've been and ships I've been on, all shot on this Kodak camera. I then, when I got to be an efficient deckhand, that's like be able to do watches and that, which meant you got really big money compared to, well, 4 times what I was getting before. And I was able to buy this Yashica camera in Osaka, believe it or not. And with that I got a free black and white film, and I bought colour. Now, I was a bit of an experimenter, you see, because they told me, you can't shoot at night with colour. And if you watch my film, you'll find some of it's not very good, others of it's not too bad. It wasn't really a waste of money. And I also put the black and white one on, cut it and split it into it, so you can see the difference when it's in black and white. Because black and white film was a lot faster than colour. Today you've got all these mobile phones that'll take practically in the dark. Anyway, I'm over half an hour. I tell people to watch me to the end, because if you don't, you'll miss something. But I forget what I actually... Oh, I started off by telling Ed. If any of the Eds contact me, as I say, I do anything to help the Labour Party. Years ago, I was branch secretary of the Agricultural Workers Union. But I only worked on a farm for 6 months and had to give it up. But I carried on running it using my dad. My dad became the secretary and I did all the work for him. I know quite a bit about the law, because I'm one of these people that can study, and if I want to find out something, I find out about it. I've got a CD here called the Oxford Encyclopedia, and I've been trying to use it again, but they're telling me it's out of date. I said, well, I bought that bloody thing, it worked on XP, why can't I get it to work on Windows 7? And if I can't, can I have an XP disc? It's nonsense. If you ever look at all my films, you'll find all sorts of transitions and rolling titles, and I mean, I love that sort of editing thing. If you watch some of my stuff, you'll find some of the photographic tricks I use are used today. One of the ones was special effect was I shot a shot through the living room of our house, which had a window either side, so that I had the camera right up to the window, and you can see out through the far window, and it looks like you're in the room. And then I start to back off, and you can see it looks like I've gone through the window. I think Hitchcock tried something like that in one of his scenes. Anyway, there's some stunts I couldn't do. I tried to do mum shooting an apple off my father's head with a crossbow. And I built the crossbow, I made the crossbow. But that camera, to do that you need to have a still camera, to take still photographs. I've got a Samsung DVD camera here that's the latest thing I ever got. I never went to the mobile phone, that's where I stopped. But all my videos, by the way, are selfies. So all these people, they call themselves selfies. My first video in 2007 was a selfie. I even mentioned on it when I'm demonstrating cooking how difficult it is to operate the camera and cook at the same time and keep the camera pointed in the right place. I said, they say men can't multitask, I bet women couldn't do what I did. Anyway, that's it. If anybody sees this and can get in touch with anybody at Labour headquarters, contact me by email, and it is ELSOFILMS, that's Echo Sierra Lima Oscar Foxtrot India Lima Mike Sierra. Is that slow enough for you? Because I usually read it out much faster, and the phone girl says, I'm sorry, that's too quick for me. I said, well, I'm 77 and I'm too quick for you. I have the same problem with playing the guitar. When I haven't got a drum beat, I play too fast. When I played in the group, I was always being told off for playing it too fast. Like Apache and things like that. And when they finally got me down to the speed it should be, I said, is it that slow really? God, it's too bloody easy. Anyway, I must stop in case they try to stop me, because I've noticed some of my videos, long ones like this, they cut it off before it finishes. They don't allow it to record that long, and they might even do that with this one. Goodbye, and vote Labour!